I am a non-binary transgender person who got an abortion in Texas. I got my abortion in 2017. I was unemployed at the time, and I was living with three other people in a three-bedroom apartment. I literally didn't have room, to have a baby, to, house a baby, and I also wasn't in a place emotionally to parent. I also knew, since I was actively looking for work, that my work search would be a lot harder if I were pregnant, because there is a lot of discrimination against pregnant people when looking for work. I also had some health challenges at the time that would have made it very challenging for me to carry to term, and it was really important to me to end my pregnancy on my own terms rather than wait for a medical emergency. In Texas, there are a lot of restrictions on abortion. At the time I got my abortion in 2017, there was actually in place, you had to have a medically unnecessary ultrasound, and then you had to wait 24 hours between the ultrasound and the procedure itself. Texas is a large state with a lot of space between clinics. So for some people who don't live near a clinic, that could necessitate an overnight stay or two really long car trips. I actually live in a city, so I was able to pretty easily get to the abortion clinic. I also had a support system around me. I had emotional support when I was going through everything. And I also had a ride to the clinic for my procedure. Because I got the surgical procedure, I was sedated and wasn't able to drive myself home. In addition to the waiting period, you also have a counselor who gives you information that's medically inaccurate, and you basically have to, sit there and go through that counseling session before you can go ahead and get your abortion. Seeking care as a non-binary person was a little bit challenging, because the field of abortion care and gynecological care in general is so gendered. Like, the patient is always assumed to be female, and this is reflected everywhere from clinic decor to aftercare instructions. So, I mean, picture yourself picking up the aftercare packet for a surgery you just went through, and all of the instructions assume that you are a different gender than you are. I mean, in an emotional space where I was already feeling vulnerable, that that sort of thing just kind of adds to the difficulties I'm going through at the time. So the clinic I sought treatment at, everyone was very compassionate, but I could tell that not all staff members understood transgender issues, and I could tell that the clinic wasn't prepared to have a transgender patient. Like, there was no field to put my pronouns, so people didn't know how to refer to me. And I had to put down my legal name because they didn't really have a field for the name that I actually went by at the time. They did their best, they marked it on my chart, but because they didn't have a field for it, people missed it. And again, it's a situation where I'm seeking medical care that, I'm feeling really vulnerable. I've just come through a crowd of people screaming at me and calling me a murderer. And then I get into this setting and I'm called by the wrong name and people refer to me with the wrong pronouns. And so it's just a bad emotional experience that, it's just like a bad emotional experience, kind of on top of the difficulties of accessing care in the first place. To all the trans folks out there, if you've had an abortion, I just want you to know that you're not alone. There are a lot of trans people who have had abortions, and I hope by sharing my story, I can help destigmatize it so that we can talk about this more freely. I also want you to know that getting an abortion doesn't invalidate your gender. Getting an abortion doesn't make you a woman. Only you can determine what your gender is. I think an important thing to remember is that abortion is healthcare. People get abortions because they need them, And it's important to make sure that abortion is always accessible. People have all sorts of reasons for getting abortions, and they're all valid. And I think we need to, make sure that the government isn't intervening and picking and choosing who gets to have an abortion for what reason. And in the words of Renee Bracy Sherman, everyone loves someone who's had an abortion. That includes you. I hope people get involved with this issue because protecting abortion access means protecting the future of everyone in your community who you care about. It means it means protecting the health and safety of the health and safety of folks who can get pregnant. It means empowering people to choose when and how they have families.